If you're not yet a hypochondriac, Critical by Dr. Matt Morgan may very well turn you into one. That being said, this book is a really fascinating read and one that I absolutely definitely recommend for everybody. I do have to point out that it's not as light-hearted or as comedic as I would have expected. I think the reason that's something that could quite easily be expected is because there is a quote on the front from Adam Kay being used to market this book. Adam Kay wrote "This is going to hurt," which is a very funny but also very emotional book of the same kind of theme. Critical is a bit more serious but also very eye-opening and enlightening, and it is emotional as well. Critical, well, the subtitle is Stories from the Front Line of Intensive Care Medicine, and Dr. Morgan works in an ICU. He works in an intensive care unit. And this book, I have to say, I absolutely love the way it's laid out. I love how it's structured. It takes us through different parts of the body that can present problems, which is basically your entire body. That could lead to somebody being in ICU. For example, it looks at, there's an entire section dedicated to the brain, to the lungs, to the blood, to the guts, other bits and pieces. And it focuses on certain conditions, specific conditions like sepsis that could lead to somebody being in ICU and how they would be treated, how the medical staff have to approach this, how easy it is to treat, or how medicine has developed over the years for us to now be able to treat this. Oh, I say us, I no medical skills whatsoever, but how easy or more easy it is to treat than it used to be. So we get a little bit of medical history to show us how far medical care has come. We also get anecdotes from Dr. Morgan's experience working in intensive care. Obviously, details change to protect patient privacy, but we get real-life cases of how this is done in the real world, and I will say they're not all happy endings. This is not just a case of, look how amazing intensive care can be, we save everybody's life. It's absolutely not like that. It does highlight some of the pitfalls and some of the ways in which medicine is not yet fully advanced enough for us to be able to tackle every single problem. It's very honest about that, and I think that's something that's really important, because it's not just a how glorious is ICU, don't we save everybody's lives. It's absolutely not the case, and it really is enlightening into how intense ICU can be. It also looks at a lot of cases, particularly surrounding, for example, the heart, where somebody can be perfectly healthy and then their heart can just stop, and it takes a lot of work for the medical staff to actually identify the problem, and that's before they can even try and solve the problem. But as I said, it will make you a hypochondriac. I kind of feel like it's a watered, heavily watered down version of Grey's Anatomy, insofar as it starts off with a description of, for example, the brain, the functions it has, and on the most basic level, how it works. And then we'll have an anecdote where somebody's brain, I guess, malfunctioned and caused them to end up in ICU. But the one thing I didn't really like about this is that it goes back and forth a bit too much. For example, we'll get a little bit of an anecdote, and then there'll be a massive digression that lasts several pages, and then we'll go back to the anecdote. And it's not just a case of being suspenseful, so we kind of wait to see whether or not the patient survived. It starts off with the anecdote. We might even just get introduced to their name, and then there'll be a 3 or 4 page tangent, and then we'll get back to that patient, and I'm like, what? I completely forgot they existed. So I feel like the structures of each chapter could be a bit better, but in terms of the chapters themselves, I think it gave us a really good amount of information. I liked that each chapter was dedicated, for the most part, to a different part of the anatomy. It helped it flow really well. So apart from that small gripe, I really liked it. For the most part, it's easy to understand, but I think if you've got no medical knowledge, I've done a lot of writing about healthcare products, healthcare services, things like that, so I'm familiar with and passionate about the bare bones of medical care and ICU equipment. But I think if you've never ever dabbled in it, some of the information might be a bit too full on. There are a lot of technical terms. But that doesn't mean you can't read it and enjoy it. It just means that you may prefer some sections over the other. I definitely would recommend this book. I think it's very eye-opening and very enlightening, and emotional, and as I said, it will turn you into a hypochondriac because you're sitting reading about how all of a sudden your heart can just stop or your lungs can, become really badly damaged, and it's absolutely terrifying. And I did feel sick quite a little bit, particularly with the sections about the heart and the blood. Absolutely terrifying. But it does make you think about your own health and how precious life can be and how it can just be snapped away from you in an instant. I absolutely recommend it. Don't expect something too witty or... Well, I just don't expect anything that you would find in the likes of This Is Going to Hurt. It's a bit more serious, maybe a bit more important, you could argue. I think it will make you question a lot, it will make you look at a lot, and certainly it will make you understand the ICU a lot more. For the most part, it's really well written and something that I think everybody could benefit from. Critical is a really good read.